All right, welcome back. In our last couple of explainers, we really dug into why old school linear training can lead to frustrating plateaus and what nonlinear periodization is all about. But today is all about bridging that gap from theory to action. We are going to build your plan step by step.
Okay, so let's get right to it. This is the big question, isn't it? I mean, it's one thing to understand all the concepts, but how do you actually turn that knowledge into a real-life calendar, with actual workouts that are going to get you to your goal? Well, that's exactly what we're going to build together today. An actionable framework you can literally start using the second this is over.
So, here's how we're going to tackle this 5 clear parts. First, we'll start with the end in mind. Then we'll dive into something called the 3-phase funnel. After that, we get super practical with some actionable athlete templates. We'll cover the all-important 80-20 rule, and finally, we'll set up some guardrails for smart progression. Let's jump in.
First things first, look, a great training plan doesn't start with this Monday's workout. No way. It starts way out in the future at your finish line. You've got to know the destination before you even start looking at the map, right?
Okay, this is your foundation, and it's built on 3 really key decisions. First up, what's your number 1 goal race? And be specific here, the date, the distance, and what success actually looks like to you. Second, you're going to want to pepper in a few secondary or tune-up races. Think of them as dress rehearsals that break up the long grind. And third, and this is maybe the most important, be realistic. You got to overlay your life on top of this plan. Busy periods at work, family vacations, your injury history. This is where a nonlinear plan really shines because it's built to bend with real life, not break.
Okay, so we've got our season all mapped out. Now we need a structure, a framework to hang everything on. And that's where this idea of funnel periodization comes in. Just think of it as the core mental model that's going to guide your entire training cycle.
So just picture a funnel, right? You start at the wide top, which is all about building broad, general fitness. As you move down and get closer to your race, that funnel narrows and your training becomes super specific. Then, after the race, you come out the bottom and broaden back out into recovery. But here's the magic trick. Within every single one of those phases, you're constantly mixing it up with weekly variety. It's truly the best of both worlds. You get that logical long-term progression, but with all the benefits of short-term stimulus diversity.
So, what does this actually look like in phase 1, the foundation phase? Well, for about 8 to 12 weeks, the main goal is pretty simple. Build your aerobic engine and just get into a good routine. But, and this is really important, look at this sample week. Even in the so-called base phase, it is not just easy miles. Check out that threshold development on Saturday. We're already touching on different efforts to stop that speed detraining we talked about before. You're keeping the engine sharp from day 1. And now we move into phase 2, specific preparation. This is where the intensity and the focus really start to ramp up. So for this marathoner, look at Tuesday and Thursday. On Tuesday, we've got a VO2 max session. That's to raise the ceiling of your fitness. Then on Thursday, it's all about marathon pace, dialing in that exact effort you need on race day. The key takeaway here is that we're still using a ton of variety, but now it's all in service of one very specific goal, running a fantastic marathon. And finally, we hit the taper. For 2 or 3 weeks, the one and only goal is to be perfectly ready on race day. And this is where so many people get it wrong. The common mistake is to cut both volume and intensity. But look here. Yeah, the total mileage drops by a huge 40 to 50%. But we're still keeping these short, sharp sessions on Tuesday and some race pace work on Thursday. You're shedding all that built-up fatigue while keeping the engine absolutely primed and ready to go. Okay, so we've covered the philosophy, the why behind it all. Now, let's get to the really practical part of this explainer. I'm talking about 3 detailed templates for different types of runners that you can literally take, adapt, and start using immediately.
First up, let's look at the intermediate half marathoner. This is someone probably running around 20 to 30 miles a week. So during their specific prep phase, the whole week is anchored by 2 key quality days. Tuesday is all about speed development. That's your VO2 max work. And Thursday is where you dial in that specific half-marathon race pace. Then you've got the long run on Saturday to build that deep endurance, and you might even finish the last few miles at your goal pace to practice running strong on tired legs.
But remember, a template is just a starting point. It's not set in stone. So how do you make it yours? Well, if you're chasing a fast time, say under 90 minutes, you're probably going to increase the volume of those key workouts. If you're crunched for time, you have to protect those 3 main sessions, Tuesday, Thursday, and Saturday. Make them non-negotiable.
And if you know you're prone to injury, please don't be afraid to swap out an easy run for a cross-training session. It's all about what works for you. All right, next up, our advanced marathoner. This person is running higher volume, maybe 40 to 60 miles a week. And you'll notice the structure looks pretty similar, but the dosage is totally different. The volume inside the workouts is way higher, and the long run is a lot longer, with a big chunk of it right at marathon pace. This whole structure is designed to handle the massive demands of marathon training while still keeping things fresh and preventing you from getting stale.
And again, we adapt it. If you're chasing a sub-3-hour marathon, the sheer volume of marathon pace work becomes absolutely critical. That's your bread and butter. But if this is maybe your first crack at breaking 4 hours, you might actually pull back on the really intense VO2 max stuff and just focus on being super consistent at your threshold and marathon paces. And listen, at this kind of volume for injury prevention, adding dedicated strength training twice a week, that is completely non-negotiable.
And finally, let's look at the ultra runner, because this is a whole different beast. The demands are completely different. Here, durability is king. That's the name of the game. So notice the emphasis on back-to-back long runs on Saturday and Sunday. That's all about building fatigue resistance. And the hard efforts, they aren't really VO2 max intervals. It's more about hill power and long, steady-state tempos. And that strength training on Friday, it's not an afterthought. It is a core component for building resilience on the trails. Okay. I know what you might be thinking, seeing all this weekly variation. It might feel like nonlinear training is just random. Like we're just throwing workouts at a wall to see what sticks. But it's not. Not at all. There is a fundamental rule governing the intensity, and it's absolutely critical that you understand it. And this right here, this is the key. Nonlinearity sits on top of proven models. It doesn't replace them. You're not throwing out decades of proven training wisdom. You are simply applying a smarter, more sophisticated weekly structure on top of a rock-solid, well-established foundation. And that foundation, it's the good old 80-20 principle. If you look at this chart, it shows that over an entire 12-week cycle, about 80% of your runs are low intensity, easier recovery. The other 20% are your quality sessions. The real magic of the nonlinear approach is that you're just rotating which hard workouts you do from week to week, but the overall ratio stays perfectly balanced. It is highly structured, not chaotic in the slightest. Okay, so we've built the plan, we understand the rules of intensity, but how do we actually execute this thing safely? That brings us to our final and maybe most crucial section, the guardrails. These are the rules that make sure your plan is sustainable and effective, and they're what will keep you from burning out or getting injured. This might be the simplest, but also the most powerful rule for staying healthy. Just remember this. Your body is amazing at adapting to stress, but it can't adapt to a bunch of new stresses all at once. So, in any given 2 to 3 week block, you get to pick one thing to increase. Either your volume, the intensity of your workouts, or the density, how many runs you do. Just pick one, not all three at the same time. The second guardrail is the planned recovery week, or what we call a deload week. And let me be clear, this is not a week off on the couch. It's a week of active recovery. Just look at the difference here. The total mileage is cut almost in half. The long run is way shorter and easier. You might still do some of the hard workouts, but the volume within them is way, way down. This is what allows your body to actually absorb all the hard work you just did. And here's the magic number to burn into your brain, 30 to 50%. Every 3 to 4 weeks, you need to plan a week where you deliberately slash your total training volume by that much. I promise you, this is not lost time. This is when the real adaptations, the real fitness gains actually happen. It is not a sign of weakness. It is the absolute hallmark of smart, sustainable training. So let's wrap this all up. Building your own effective nonlinear plan really comes down to these 5 things. 1. Start with the end in mind. 2. Use that 3-phase funnel model. 3. Adapt our templates to your needs. 4. Obey the 80-20 rule over the long haul. And 5. Build in those essential guardrails for progression and recovery. Because at the end of the day, the perfect plan isn't something you just download and follow blindly. It has to be a living, breathing document that evolves with you. It's a flexible framework, not a rigid prescription. So I'll leave you with this question. Based on how you feel, based on what your life looks like right now, how are you going to adapt your plan this week?